Nah, no, I don't think I'm gonna be smiling after this one. Hey there, Cinephiles. Today I'm reviewing Smile 2. This is the follow-up to the 2022 film Smile, which back in the day, I remember walking out of it and I just felt so unnerved and just not happy, not wanting to smile, if you will. And that's because the original film was able to get under my skin and just be this kind of mean film that it knew how to push certain buttons for me. And even though it wasn't the greatest film, it was still able to accomplish that on a really interesting level. Shout out to my cousin who I saw the original one with. I just really remember it just not being a great day afterwards, but like in a good way because the movie was just able to have that staying power. And in short, with Smile 2, I was looking over my shoulder as soon as I walked out of the theater going back to my car, which I do believe is a good indicator on whether or not a scary movie had an impact on you. But in this second installment in the Smile verse or whatever, which by the way, it should have been called Smile 2, which T-O-O, not just the number 2. But either way, this sequel stars Naomi Scott as a pop star who's coming back after a year hiatus due to some personal problems. And in this, once again, Smile deals with grief and how one handles it. This one not only touches on grief, but it also handles manipulation and how that can just come from anywhere and anything. Especially as a star, there are so many people around you that are just trying to control you in one way or the other, and this movie handles it very well. It's really able to tie those themes in with the possession of the Smile monster very, very well. Because when you think of possession, it's really just manipulation on a supernatural scale. And with manipulation coming from every single part of Naomi Scott's character's life, she's able to portray that feeling of trapped and going crazy just amazingly. I haven't seen too many of Naomi Scott's performances. I've always been a fan of her, but seeing this, it just really kind of solidifies that this is her best performance. She's just really able to run the gambit on so many different emotions, and she's able to just hold your attention as a, well, famous pop star. And honestly, all around, the performances were actually pretty good. Like, there wasn't necessarily a wink link to me. And I also want to extend it to Kyle Gallner. We actually open up the film not too long after the first one, so we kind of see where he's been and exactly what's happening, and we open up with him on a really good oneer. And of course, it's after this scene where everything gets tied up from the first movie and we get really started with the second one. And I will say too, overall, I was a little bit worried at first when they announced this movie, but once they said it was a pop star, there's really only one way I would have been satisfied with this story playing out, and I gotta say I'm satisfied with how the story played out. It kind of opens up the door to a really interesting third film if they ever choose to do it, and if they do commit to doing a third one, if this one does very well, then it has to be the last one because you can feel the limits of this franchise in this film specifically. And I'm saying that even though I do like this more than the first film, but the way everything kind of plays out with its themes as well as its actual story, you see it ending with the third film. It shouldn't necessarily go past that. Now, whether or not they actually decide to do a third film, I will hold on to how excited I'd be, depending on exactly which way they're going to go with the story, because I do think there's really only one great way to do it. But again, I'm not the one writing the movies or anything like that, so I'm gonna wait and see. But for the way things are kind of set up for it, it just seems like there's one way to do it. Either way though, if you like the first Smile, I'm more than sure enough you'll like the second one. But if you didn't like the first one, I don't think this is necessarily going to change your mind. There's a lot of really fun stuff that they do in here, but there's also just some stuff that's kind of cookie cutter / nothing spectacular. So in the end, you do get this film that's very eerie and unnerving, but it does have a lot of pretty average moments, as well as some moments that, yes, they're kind of put in there to confuse you, but even then, if you just got a little bit more clarity on these certain scenes, it could have just been all the more impactful, especially for this runtime of 2 hours. But also, again, at the center of it, you do have this really good performance from Naomi Scott, and I'm excited to see her in more things. And this movie did its job. It got me looking forward to part 3 if that ever gets made. This movie also could have just been called Smiles. Anyway, this movie does do well with its themes and its scares, and if you're just looking for a good little horror movie in the theater, I think this will suffice. I give Smile 2 a 3 out of 5 stars. I really did walk back to my car looking over my shoulder. I was just, because I usually park behind a theater, so sometimes it's a little dark and scary, and I can't be doing that with some of these movies, you know what I mean? Oh, I just smiled. But alright, those are my thoughts on Smile 2. Be sure to let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Also, let me know what you thought of the first one, and let me know which one you think is better of the two. As always, thank you guys for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Be sure to stay tuned for more Yeti Films content, and I'll watch you later.